The loudest person in the room is usually the most uncertain, but the one who stays silent, that's the person who already knows the outcome. Silence is often misunderstood. To the average mind, silence feels like a void, an uncomfortable absence of activity, validation, or progress. But silence is not emptiness. It's not a lack of something. It's not passive. In truth, silence is one of the most powerful forms of alignment you will ever experience. When everything around you is noisy, when the world demands your attention, your opinions, your presence, choosing silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. Silence creates space, and space is where clarity is born. So many people are confused not because they lack answers, but because they're drowning in noise, external opinions, internal fears, endless scrolling, constant talking. But when you get silent, you clear the clutter. You allow your soul to breathe. You stop responding to chaos and begin responding to calling. That's alignment. Alignment is when your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, and your values move in the same direction. But how do you know what direction you're supposed to move in if you're always reacting, always speaking, always proving? You don't. You burn out trying to create results from a place of disconnection. But silence draws you inward. It forces you to confront what's real versus what's just loud. You begin to feel what's right instead of trying to explain what makes sense to everyone else. In silence, you begin to trust yourself again. You stop asking for outside confirmation, and you tune into your internal compass. You realize you were never lost. You were just distracted. When you silence the external, you awaken the internal. That's where alignment starts to happen. Not in the noise, not in the hustle, not in the applause, but in the quiet space where you remember who you are and why you were sent. There's a divine rhythm to life that you can only hear when you're silent. And when you move in alignment with that rhythm, everything flows. Opportunities feel organic. Relationships become peaceful. Your energy isn't drained trying to chase what isn't yours. You attract, not because you're trying harder, but because you're vibrating in truth. That vibration can't be faked. It's cultivated in the stillness, and silence also reveals. It shows you what you've been tolerating. It exposes the places where you've been out of order. When you stop speaking, you start seeing. You see who's around you just for noise. You see how much of your identity was wrapped up in performing. You see where you were forcing outcomes instead of allowing divine timing to unfold. Silence is not comfortable, but it is clarifying. And it's in that clarity that transformation begins. You stop moving out of obligation. You stop people pleasing. You stop guessing yourself. You stop seeking permission. And most importantly, you stop betraying yourself just to be understood. You realize that being in alignment with your Creator is more valuable than being approved by the crowd. In silence, you come back to the source of your peace, the source of your purpose, the source of your power, and when you're aligned with the source, everything you need begins to come to you. You don't have to manipulate it. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to hustle in desperation. What's meant for you recognizes you. It flows toward alignment. Silence is not about retreating from life. It's about recalibrating so you can engage life with intention. You don't disappear to escape. You disappear to refine, and when you emerge, you move differently. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You show up less often, but when you do, your presence shifts the room. That's what alignment does. It makes your energy undeniable. Too many people are busy being loud, but empty, talking much, but saying nothing, visible, but directionless. Don't be like them. Don't confuse motion with meaning. Don't confuse presence with purpose. When you get aligned, your silence will carry more authority than their noise ever will. You don't need to explain your process. You don't need to narrate your evolution, just align. Let silence do the heavy lifting. Let it strip away the excess. Let it heal the parts of you that don't need to be seen, only strengthened. Let it center you so that your next move comes from clarity, not pressure. When you understand that silence is alignment, you stop fearing stillness. You embrace it because you realize that what feels like nothing happening is actually everything aligning behind the scenes, beneath the surface, within you, and when you come out of that space, you'll no longer have to chase alignment, because you'll be it. Power doesn't start on stages, in boardrooms, or in front of cameras. It starts in silence. It grows when no one's watching, when there's no audience to applaud you, no spotlight to validate you, no noise to distract you. True power is cultivated in quiet spaces, in those unseen moments where you wrestle with yourself, refine your character, and align with your purpose. You don't wake up powerful. You become powerful through process, and that process is hidden. The quiet spaces are not punishment. They are preparation. While others chase visibility, the wise understand the value of invisibility, because in those moments when it feels like nothing is happening, everything is happening. The inside. The ego is being stripped. The need for validation is being detoxed. The shallow roots are being replaced by something deeper. Power that is built in silence cannot be shaken by noise. The problem is most people want elevation without isolation. They want platform without pruning. But anything that grows too fast without depth collapses under pressure. And if you're not grounded in the quiet, you'll be destroyed in the public. The quiet is where you learn to hear your own voice. It's where you learn to separate impulse from intuition. It's where you train your mind, strengthen your spirit, and clarify your calling. The world calls it solitude, but those who walk in purpose call it strategy. If your power depends on people clapping for you, you don't have power. You have performance. But when your power is rooted in who you are when no one's looking, you become unstoppable. Because now you're not moved by opinions. You're not shaken by rejection. You're not manipulated by pressure. You've already faced your doubts, your fears, your insecurities. In the quiet, and won. In the quiet spaces, your identity is refined. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You stop trying to become what others expect. And you begin becoming what you were designed to be. You stop measuring yourself by the world's metrics, likes, views, income, and start building something eternal. In silence, you find strength that doesn't need to be announced. You walk differently because your confidence is rooted in process, not praise. Every great leader, visionary, or world changer had a season of silence. A hidden chapter where the crowd was gone and the only voice that mattered was the one within. That space isn't glamorous, it's uncomfortable, it's often lonely, but it's sacred because in that space you're not just working on your goals, you're being shaped into the person who can handle them. You develop discipline in the dark. You build resilience when nobody's encouraging you. You learn focus when distraction isn't an option. And that's where real power is forged. Not in front of the world, but in the fire of private transformation. Because if you don't get it right in the quiet, you won't survive the noise. You won't have the internal foundation to carry what you're praying for. People want the crown, but not the cave. They want the influence, but not the isolation. But the cave is where kings are made. The wilderness is where warriors are born. Don't despise the quiet. Embrace it, because it's in that space where heaven deposits what the world can never give you: vision, peace, authority, clarity. You're not behind. You're not stuck. You're being built. And what's being built in the quiet is going to speak for you when you walk into the room. The power that you're cultivating in silence is the very thing that will make noise when it's time. You won't have to announce yourself. You won't have to beg to be seen. You'll walk in, and your presence will carry what your words never could. This is why you can't rush the process. You can't short-cut the silent season. Because that's where your character catches up to your calling. That's where your roots go deep enough to support the weight of your next level. You're not missing out. You're being set apart. You're not falling behind. You're being formed. And when you come out of the quiet, you'll come out with something that can't be taught, copied, or stolen. Real power. Not the kind that fades when the applause stops, but the kind that sustains when the world turns cold. That kind of power is rare, and it only grows in the quiet. The world often tells you that to be noticed, you have to be loud. You have to speak up, stand out, post more, promote more, and constantly remind people that you exist. But that's a strategy for the insecure. When you really carry something of value, you don't have to chase attention. Attention finds you. The right people notice the quiet ones, not because they're flashy, but because they're focused. Not because they're everywhere, but because they're undeniable. There's a different energy that surrounds someone who doesn't beg to be seen. That kind of presence speaks louder than any announcement ever could. It's not in the volume of your voice, it's in the strength of your presence. Quiet doesn't mean passive. It means powerful. It means you don't waste energy trying to convince people who were never meant to understand you. You move with intention, you operate in peace, and in that stillness, the right people begin to recognize, because people who are truly aligned with your purpose don't need the noise. They're not impressed by how loud you are. They're drawn to how real you are. They see what others overlook. They pick up on the details that can't be faked. Your character, your consistency, your discernment. You're not selling yourself. You're simply being yourself. And that's what attracts who's meant to walk with you. The loud ones may get the crowd, but the quiet ones, they get the connection, real connection, deep alignment, purposeful relationships. Because when you're not performing, you're attracting people who value the truth of who you are, not the version you marketed. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to fit into rooms that don't see you. You just have to keep being excellent in silence, and the right doors will open without you knocking. The right people notice the quiet ones because they themselves have had to walk that path. They know the weight of being overlooked. They know the value of stillness. They know the cost of wisdom. So when they see it in someone else, they don't ignore it. They lean in, and suddenly you're not chasing opportunities. Opportunities are chasing you. There's something magnetic about quiet confidence. When you don't speak unnecessarily, when you don't explain yourself constantly, when you let your work and your walk speak for you, it carries a gravity that can't be denied. The right people feel that. They may not say much at first, but they're watching, observing, respecting, and when the moment is right, they connect, not out of pity, but out of purpose. Some people are loud because they're trying to fill a void. But when you're full of purpose, of clarity, of integrity, you don't need to be loud. You become a frequency, not just a sound, and that frequency draws people who are tuned into something deeper than surface-level impressions. They see your energy before you even speak. They respect your presence because they recognize your preparation. The most powerful people don't talk about what they're doing. They do it, and the right people notice. They may not comment, like, or cheer, but they're watching, and at the right time they'll show up, not because you demanded it, but because you deserved it. You were consistent when no one was clapping. You were faithful when no one was looking. And now that you're aligned, they're drawn in, not to your noise, but to your essence. This is why you can't water yourself down to be more noticeable to the wrong people. The right ones are already searching for someone just like you, someone focused, someone steady, someone who values peace over performance, someone who's not trying to be popular, just purposeful, The louder you try to be, the more you might repel the very people sent to elevate your life. There's wisdom in restraint, there's strength in silence, and there's favor that flows when you stop trying to be seen and start focusing on being ready. The people who matter will see. The people who are meant to find you will. Not because you shouted, but because you stood tall in your truth. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to over-explain. You don't need to constantly defend your journey. Just keep walking in excellence. Keep building quietly. Keep trusting the timing, because the right people notice the quiet ones. And when they do, everything shifts. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. Silence is not just a discipline, it's a defense. In a world where everyone feels entitled to an opinion about your life, your dreams, your timing, and your purpose, silence becomes sacred. It protects what's still forming. It shields what's still fragile. It guards what hasn't yet matured enough to stand against scrutiny. Your vision doesn't just need strategy, it needs sanctuary, and silence is that sanctuary. When you speak too soon, you invite voices that were never assigned to your calling. People start projecting their fears onto your future. They can't see what you see, so they try to shrink it to fit what they understand. But your vision was never meant to be filtered through their limitations. It was given to you, not a committee. And silence helps you protect that personal covenant between you and God, between you and your purpose. Contamination doesn't always come from malicious people. It often comes from well-meaning individuals who simply don't get it. They love you, but they don't understand the assignment. They care about you, but they fear for you. And if you share too soon, their fear becomes your doubt. Their hesitation becomes your second guessing. Their logic starts choking your faith. That's contamination. Not because they are evil, but because they weren't built to carry what was entrusted to you. This is why silence is necessary in the early stages of a vision. A seed can't grow when it's constantly being dug up to check if it's working. And that's what speaking too soon does. It exposes the seed before the roots are strong. Silence gives your vision time to take root in your spirit, time to evolve, time to develop the strength and clarity it needs before it ever faces the outside world. We often think sharing our plans creates accountability, but sometimes it creates unnecessary interference. People start offering opinions, suggestions, and detours you never needed. They start asking questions you don't have answers to yet. And suddenly, you're trying to defend something you're still trying to understand. You're trying to explain something sacred to people who see it as speculative. You're trying to validate your next level to people who haven't even left the ground. Silence doesn't mean secrecy out of fear. It means protection out of wisdom. You know what's still forming. You know what's still fragile. You know what needs time, space, and sacred distance, not because you're hiding, but because you're honoring the process. Because you understand that some things are too holy to be handled carelessly. When you keep your vision in silence, you create the atmosphere for divine instruction. You're not distracted by applause or discouraged by criticism. You're focused, you're listening, you're discerning the next move instead of performing for validation. And in that focused stillness, the vision grows in purity, it grows in depth, it grows in accuracy. It becomes something you don't just believe in, it becomes part of who you are. Think about how many dreams died not because they were impossible, but because they were prematurely exposed. They were shared in rooms that lacked the capacity to nurture them. They were discussed with people who couldn't carry the weight of what they represented. Silence would have preserved what exposure tried to destroy. Silence would have allowed growth without interruption. And here's the truth. When your vision is fully formed, it will speak for itself. You won't need to explain. You won't need to convince. You won't need to overjustify. The fruit will be undeniable. The results will silence the critics. The manifestation will answer every question you once felt pressured to explain. But until then, guard your vision. Keep it close, not out of paranoia, but out of reverence. Everything precious in life is protected. Diamonds are hidden, gold is buried. Even a baby in the womb is shielded in darkness until it's ready to enter the world. Your vision deserves the same protection, the same sacred space, the same silence. Let your silence be your strength. Let it be your shield. Let it be the soil where your dreams grow untouched by the contamination of small minds, shallow hearts, and insecure voices. Let silence do the heavy lifting so that when it's time to speak, you're not just repeating ideas. You're releasing something that's been proven, purified, and prepared in the quiet. Stillness isn't laziness. It isn't weakness, and it surely isn't stagnation. In fact, stillness is often the most powerful and productive place you can stand, because it invites something greater than effort, alignment. Stillness is the signal to heaven that you're done striving, and now you're listening. You've stopped chasing, and you've started receiving. In that posture, what would have taken years in the natural begins to happen in moments. Stillness triggers supernatural acceleration. When you stop forcing and start flowing, you position yourself for divine momentum. The world teaches you to grind endlessly, to push constantly, to run harder every day. But there's a spiritual law that the world doesn't understand. What you rest in, God can multiply. What you surrender, heaven can accelerate. When you're still, you're not just doing nothing. You're doing trust. You're saying, I know I've done my part. Now I trust the timing. And that trust creates a vacuum where grace rushes in. Stillness requires faith, because it means you're no longer depending on your own hustle. It means you're releasing control and letting timing, preparation, and divine orchestration work together behind the scenes. That's where the supernatural happens. That's where the things you couldn't figure out, force, or fix suddenly begin to shift on their own. Not because you did more, but because you let go. Most people delay what's meant for them because they're addicted to movement. They confuse noise with progress. They can't sit still long enough to hear clear direction, so they end up in cycles of unnecessary effort. But acceleration doesn't come from overworking. It comes from being in position, and the right position often looks like stillness. Still in your spirit, still in your heart, still in your decisions. Still enough to hear when to move and where to go. Think about how the wind moves a sailboat. The boat doesn't have to paddle furiously. It just has to catch the wind. That's acceleration by alignment. And in life, the wind is favor, timing, divine instruction. Stillness allows you to catch it. You're no longer striving against the current. You're letting the current carry you. What used to require sweat now comes with flow. Stillness is where clarity finds you. It's where your spirit becomes sensitive again. In the stillness, you can hear the whisper, see the sign, feel the shift. You're not distracted. You're not pressured. You're present. And when you're present, you make decisions that birth acceleration instead of delay. You don't waste time doing what looks good but isn't aligned. You wait for the right move, and that move unlocks momentum you couldn't have created on your own. There are moments in life when you'll feel like everything has slowed down, like nothing's moving. But don't misread the season. Stillness is not the absence of progress. It's the setup for sudden progress. It's where heaven is rearranging things in your favor, aligning resources, preparing people, adjusting circumstances. And when it's all in place, what was standing still starts to move faster than you ever imagined. Acceleration doesn't need your anxiety. It needs your alignment. It needs your willingness to be still long enough to receive, to recharge, and to realign. Sometimes the fastest thing you can do is pause, let the noise settle, Let your heart steady. Let your thoughts clear. From that place of peace, your next move will come, and it won't be ordinary. It will be accelerated. Supernatural, divine. You'll know it wasn't you. You'll know it wasn't because of your connections or your qualifications. You'll know it happened because you had the wisdom to wait, to sit still while others ran in circles, to trust when everything screamed hurry. And because you waited, what would have taken 10 years took 10 days. What seemed impossible broke open without your hands touching it. Because stillness doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something greater is. The world may mock stillness. It may reward noise. But those who move mountains are often the ones who know how to be quiet before they climb. They know when to stop, when to breathe, when to align, because they understand that in the spirit, stillness is not silence, it's strategy. It's not doing less, it's preparing for more. And when you honor stillness, you open the door to a speed that doesn't make sense. A grace that outruns effort, a timing that overrides toil. The very thing you thought was delayed was actually being accelerated, but it took your stillness to unlock it. Your silence is not weakness, it's warfare. It's strategy. It's the stage being built for your reveal. When God is preparing to do something powerful in your life, He doesn't announce it. He hides you. He puts you in a season where it feels like nothing is moving, like no one sees you, like everything you've prayed for is delayed. But it's not punishment, it's protection. Your silence is not the end of the story. It's the setup for a supernatural reveal. In silence, you're not disappearing. You're developing. You're not forgotten. You're being fortified. God does His most powerful work in the dark, behind the scenes, in the moments when you think your voice doesn't matter, when you feel unseen, when you choose to be still even though everything in you wants to explain, prove, or react. But it's that restraint that builds the character for the calling, because a reveal without preparation is a breakdown waiting to happen. You have to understand that visibility too early can be a curse. If people see you before you're ready, they might applaud a version of you that isn't sustainable. They might crown you for something you haven't fully walked through yet. But when you allow yourself to remain silent and hidden, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, you're giving your destiny time to grow roots before it grows wings. Silence teaches you to value intimacy with your process more than validation from the public. You stop posting everything. You stop explaining everything. You stop trying to make others comfortable with your journey. And in that stillness, in that sacred quiet, you begin to feel a new kind of power, one that doesn't need to be seen to be real. You're not being passive. You're being precise, and when the time is right, your silence will break open into something no one can ignore. God always reveals what's been prepared, and if He's kept you silent, it's because what's coming is too weighty to be mishandled. He's been shaping you in the dark, teaching you to hear without reacting, to see without speaking, to feel without broadcasting, because those are the skills you'll need when He elevates you. Your silence is training. It's discipline. It's obedience. The world teaches you to make it known, to shout, to prove, to brand yourself. But purpose doesn't need promotion. It needs protection. And the greatest protection is silence. Not everyone needs to know what God is doing in you. Not everyone deserves access to your process. Silence allows God to finish what He started in you before the world gets a glimpse. And when the time comes, the reveal will not be soft. It won't be subtle. It will be undeniable, not because you made noise, but because the work will speak. The fruit will show. The transformation will be visible. The power you've built in silence will radiate in public. People won't understand where it came from, but you will. You'll know it came from the tears cried in secret, the prayers whispered in the dark, the hours spent refining what no one saw, the decisions made without applause. That's where the supernatural lives. When God reveals what he's been building in you, it won't be small, it won't be explainable, and it won't need introduction. It will carry weight because it was born in silence. Not rushed, not exposed, not diluted by opinions, just pure, unshakable purpose. That's what silence gives birth to substance that doesn't fold under pressure. You won't have to explain yourself. You won't have to defend your past. You won't have to answer every question. Your life will speak louder than your words ever could. The shift will be visible, the favor will be obvious, and the people who doubted you will have no choice but to witness the reveal. Not because you sought revenge, but because you stayed silent when you could have shouted. And God rewards that kind of trust. Your silence is sacred. Don't rush to break it. Don't waste it trying to be understood. Stay planted. Stay hidden. Let the process finish. Because what's coming won't just be a new chapter, it'll be a whole new book. And when it's revealed, the same people who overlooked you will be asking how you did it. And your answer won't be loud, it'll be clear. God did it in the silence.